Welcome to the Guiding Brands podcast with your host and chief guide, Karen Vick. This is a podcast for service-based small businesses who want to get a handle on their marketing so they can attract and gain new customers. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this episode of the Guiding Brands podcast. This episode is being recorded on Valentine's Day, and in honor of this day, I'm wearing red. Well, I will always have my red chair behind me, but I'm wearing red in honor of this special day. And today I get to chat with one of my favorite people in the world. We've known each other for almost 15 years. I first met him at a networking event, but didn't connect with him till sometime after when we were both working on a project together. Him doing videography and I doing web design and marketing for my client. And after seeing him in action and enjoying what he produced, I reached out to him to work with me on a small nonprofit project, and we've been good friends since. And I just want to welcome to the Guiding Brands podcast my good friend, Andrew McNeil. And I know that, he's no stranger to the camera. But he loves being behind the scenes.
That's
And
right.
I'm totally pulling him out of his comfort zone today. today, but listen, this is just a conversation between friends, Andrew. We're gonna do fine. The audience is gonna be fine, and they're gonna love you. And so I just want to say welcome again, and to share with you all that Andrew is the executive producer of AyanDace Studios. It's a film production company, and he works with companies and organizations to create awareness and engagement with stories. Uh, he has worked across sectors from healthcare to higher education institutions to nonprofits and philanthropy across the country, across the United States, Canada, and Australia. And, Andrew, the conversations that we have over time have been ones filled with curiosity, questioning why things are the way that they are. How can we do things better as business people? We've joined other friends in conversations like these over the years. And, I just love talking with him. So today we get to open up to the world some of our private conversation. So, but 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 as the guides, guiding our audience. So, Andrew, how are you, and what have you been up to? What's new with you?
Ah, First of all, thank you so much, Karen, for having me. Yes, you're pulling me out of my comfort zone. And full transparency, with the fact that we go way back, Karen was also instrumental in guiding my brand as well, right? Not just with the website development, but logo design and the whole concept around that. So she was able to really capture the essence of what AyanDace Studios is, down to our colors. And so we've been at it for a minute. I am well. I am well. I am well. I am we're based between New York and South Florida and
Hmm.
so forth. So I have been good, working on a few projects, right?
Yes.
Launching some new service
Yes.
offerings for our client that, you've been
Yeah, we're
instrumental in
working
as
we're
well.
working on
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's been going well so far and have a few, independent projects in the works, some documentaries and things like that. So all is well. Yeah. Thank
Nice,
you.
nice, nice. And
Yeah, man.
what I love about Andrew and the work that he does is that, there's always a heart behind, what he does, and as he shared with me, always, he believes that the story is the shortest distance between people, and I believe that story telling is essentially what marketing is. And I've said that for years. So, it's just appropriate that he feels the same way about, telling stories in a visual way, that he does. Just love. And you know what I also love is just your demeanor, just always calm. I don't have to worry about, anything. We've been trying to get me in front of the camera, you recording me for a
This
long
is true.
time,
This
and
is
this is
this is
how we
true.
end up doing it. So
No, this is true. So we're switching it around a little bit. Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. But to your point, and it's interesting that you mentioned heart, because like you mentioned for us, the idea of story being the shortest distance between people, and at the core of story is the heart, what we call the heart. And you can call it a character, the person through which the story is told. And in addition to it being the shortest distance between people, we feel that stories, right, touches the heart again, to move the mind, because people tend to
Mm,
make decisions from something that really connects to them in a deepest kind of way, right? And that is
yes.
what we're trying to do. And especially in this environment, even from content creation perspective. And I know content creation, there's a whole
Can
multiple
take many
ways of
forms.
doing that.
Hmm.
Correct,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But you know, we tend to stay story driven and people centric,
Hmm.
right? And I think that ultimately that is where everybody tend to really come back to regardless, right? Because even if you're working with brands, right, companies, organizations, right, those brands, companies, organizations don't just exist, right, by themselves. They are people, right? They're a
Hmm.
collection of people.
Hmm.
So we kind of really stay in that space, regardless.
Okay.
When you were a child growing up, right? You sit around and people tell us stories, right? And we talk about, oh, once upon a time, so and so and so. So it can really set the stage. And there's for us, there's this, and we probably have a conversation about that later. There's this whole process, right,
Yes.
around how you really tell a really good, effective story, right?
Yeah.
Not
No.
some little,
Well,
short stuff.
yeah, and history tells us that that's how history has been passed down. There's some cultures, our culture, that's how we have been able to maintain our our story, through
For sure.
storytelling, through verbal, and we just get to live in a digital world now where technology helps us do it a lot easier, and gets us to actually tell stories that can last a long time, a longer time, and you get to see and preserve those stories in a more permanent way, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, until you hit delete, of course. But
For sure, for sure, and that is absolutely true, right?
yeah,
And this is what with all the technology as availed of us, right? From whether it's the cameras or even AI, right? But
yeah,
there are tools, right? There are
yes,
tools to help us
exactly,
do the work that we do, and so to even to the point of when being told stories from you know throughout history, right? When you're hearing it, right, you still have an image in your mind
yes,
that you're processing as you're hearing those things come to life. And this is what we do with video, right? We pretty much,
yes,
create those imagery as the story is
yeah,
being told. So
yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. And it it will never go away. The tools will evolve, right?
yeah,
And it will make it, somewhat easier, but ultimately we still have to, be able to do that properly.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So tell me, I don't think I've ever asked you this, Andrew. What made you even go into videography? Because I know
Video
you,
work.
yeah.
It went back, it goes back so long, Karen, but in a nutshell, I've always done stories,
Mm-hmm.
most of it been written form, since I was like about 11, right,
Okay.
and in school. So I'd formed a group with a couple of friends of mine, and we formed this group and we started writing stories. And then we had a couple of friends who were artists and they would draw that
Uh,
and so forth. And then jump forward now, in college I was the editor of the magazine
okay.
in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all of that was something that I can tell you now that it's always been who I am, right?
I
What I
see.
do. And then I'm not quite sure how I ended up making the decision to go to video production school. And this was in the 80s, right?
Okay.
And so there was this like poof moments, like, okay, I can marry both of them together. And
Mm.
then from there, it just took off. It took me a while to end up um, creating a business
Mm-hmm.
behind it because,
Mm-hmm.
life,
Well, it was preparing you.
interrupts and so on and so forth.
You were
Right.
being
And so,
prepared.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but that's the genesis of it. And I can never really see myself doing anything else, right? It might take different, forms and
Mm-hmm.
different types of stories being told to, like whether it's for companies, organization, documentaries, what have you. But and because of that, I tell my wife all the time, she's like, I'm getting retired. So I'm saying, I'm sorry, but I will never retire. You know what I mean? I'll
Yeah.
never retire. I'll never retire.
You'll always
Yeah,
have
yeah. I'll
stories
be
to
I'll be
tell.
doing this.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll be
Yeah.
doing this. I'll be
Yeah.
doing this. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's
Awesome.
that's that's the beginning of it all in a nutshell.
Okay. Awesome. So switching gears now, talking about business and how s- video and storytelling in video format can help, our audience. How important is storytelling in video content creation? You know, what makes a compelling brand story in your mind when you sit down to talk with um, a manufacturing company, for instance, who they may make widgets, but
Right.
they make a hard piece of material that people don't see. They don't see the behind the scenes of how it's made, and they may not feel like they have a story, compared to someone who maybe an artist, maybe like maybe it's a photographer or a true artist, a fine artist that you're working with. How does that
How did
work?
that work for
Yeah,
them?
yeah.
Okay, so let's stay with that example, if you will, that you mentioned, like a manufacturer making widgets,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there are multiple ways you can go with this from a storytelling standpoint, right? But as you know, Karen, it all really starts with a deep dive conversation, right,
Mm-hmm.
with that person to see what it is they're looking to do, what is their challenge, what is their goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in this particular example, for instance, and you mentioned, one of the ways it can happen, right? If you're making a widget, right, you can tell the story, the behind the scenes story of how it was made, right? So when you're able to do that, you're able to, you know, make a connection with someone who, your potential customers, and get a sense of, what goes into making this
Mm-hmm.
particular thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, with all the stories, there's a particular process you go through in telling that story,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it's a behind the scenes story, but also, a product, right? We tend to look at it from the standpoint of, okay, it's just a thing, right?
Right.
What's the story behind this? What's the story that goes into this? Now, here's the thing. It's not enough to really talk about, and here I said talk about, not tell a story, talk about the features of the particular product, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how do you tell? But what you want to do then is really tell the story of the benefits of this product. And so if I'm going to tell the benefits of this product, then I'm going to have to tell what it does to the end user,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so oftentimes we don't really, think in that way. And so for me to be able to do that, then what we're going to do is tell the story of the end user and the challenges that they're having and how it is that this particular product,
Solves that
benefited
problem.
them,
Mm.
yeah, and
Okay.
solve that problem for them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so oftentimes, most people tend to think that the story starts here. But again, this is where you have this conversation and be able to, make these suggestions. Let's tell the story from the end, but
Yeah.
bring it back to the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Because it's
And
not
so,
about you. It's not
no, it's
about
not.
you, the widget maker. That's how we talk about this often on this podcast. Um, People who are new to business or even been in business for a while, they tend to think that whatever they share should be more about them, their background, their history, how long they've been doing it. They're the best thing since sliced bread, all the awards that they've won, and so on. And they forget who they're talking to or who they're trying to reach in the process.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, because yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's so easy that most people tend to default back to that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even as B2B brands, right? Just tend to think about themselves as opposed to who they're
Mm-hmm.
serving.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where people tend to get tripped up because what happens is that, right? Even when engaging with a potential client, right?
Right.
People, it default trying to get to that sale, right? So it
Yeah.
becomes salesy. What I mean? And you mentioned earlier that, for us, our connection is our deep sense of curiosity. And you have to have that, right? You
Right.
have to have that so that it takes the onus away or the tension away from you and to the next person's because I'm really more interested in you, Karen, right? I'm
Right.
not really want to tell you so much about
Yeah.
me. So, these are some of the sensibilities you have to, bring to
Think
play.
about.
Now, there's a place where um and there's another story and people call it origin story or your why story, which kind of, in instances, place you at the center, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is when now when you want to create some kind of awareness about, you and your company and your organization, then you talk about, how did this come to life and so on. And then,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of place yourself as the
Mm-hmm.
character in the story,
Mm-hmm.
but then other than that, it's really about, the
Yeah.
end user.
Yeah, and that story is more about establishing you as the authority, as as one of the elements in the story brand framework. That's what it is. We need to be able to establish ourselves as the authority. Why is it that you're good at doing what you do, and why is it that I should buy from you? Buy your product or service. But there's a
Right,
place.
right.
So what you're saying is that there's a place for that,
There's an
but
absolute place for
yeah,
that.
there's
Yeah,
a place for
yeah.
that.
And
Hmm.
your why story is probably, in some circles they call it the brand story. And this is a story that you really want to have, told right off the bat, right? Because
Hmm.
to your point, it establishes you as the authority, as the expert in this space, so that when you're having conversations with your client, right, you are the expert. You are, right, to
Hmm.
use your word, guiding
Yes.
them through the process.
Yeah.
And because some people like to inject their thoughts and ideas, but then you have to bring it back. Yeah, but I'm the
Yes.
person who has the
Yeah.
expertise to help you,
Yeah.
guide
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. It's part of that. Yeah. The one of the elements, like I said,
correct,
that
correct,
tells that story. It's like completes the arc. So yeah.
right.
Yeah. So, you've been doing this for a long time, Andrew. And you said you started learning videography in the 80s. We're now in 2024, and the technology has changed. The way people communicate has changed. What do you see as, the biggest change? What has evolved over the past decade or so, and what do you see coming in the future for video, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, clearly, the technology is one of the main parts of it, right? Because now it's allowing everybody access, right,
Mm,
to be able to create content.
mm-hmm,
And so this is one of the challenges even for those of us, like people like myself, because now the DIY
yeah,
thing
everybody's got a
comes into
phone.
play.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a phone, right?
Mm-hmm,
And one of the change also from a societal standpoint is that um, folks are also have been socialized into how they inject content, right? And how they process it, meaning that, you know, it doesn't have to be a well told story, right? It just
mm-hmm,
can be just a flash of a thing, but
mm-hmm,
a flash is just that. It's here today, gone tomorrow,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And that comes and goes also with some of the technologies. So that is one of the things that we notice clearly because now everybody has access. I have a colleague of mine. He does similar work that I do, and every time I speak to him, one of the things he's always complaining about is like, "Oh, everybody has a phone and they think they can do this and they can do that." And yeah, but you know, if we're in the space really put too much attention to that, then
Yeah. You
we're
won't
going to
be in
put ourselves in
business.
that.
Yeah.
We won't be in business, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and 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 here's the thing, Karen, there's enough space for everybody to operate in,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But then when you get to the next level, then it's a whole different story because you don't have the
And the
expertise, you don't have
quality.
the level of curiosity to be able
Mhm.
to produce that kind of quality of work, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the flash stuff works in some instances, but it's not sustainable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a disposable type of approach to the work.
And you know what? Everybody has their own lane. You don't go to a doctor telling the doctor how to cure your ailment. You know, you might go into your medicine cabinet and pull out, a couple of aspirins to take care of a headache. But if it persists, you're not going to just keep taking the aspirin. You need to consult with someone who is an expert, who can help you. So it's the same thing in what we do and what you do. The camera is there. You can take photographs. You can take these videos, but where is the story in all of this? Where is the story when you want to really truly present yourself as a professional, that authority that people want to do business with? There comes a time when you need to differentiate yourself by getting it professionally done. Even the scripting. What are you going to say first? What's going to be in the middle of the story? How is it going to end? Those kinds of things. And yeah, we have AI now. That's a buzzword. But I think there needs to be a human element to this too. We
Oh,
can't
absolutely,
we can't not
absolutely.
do that. Yeah.
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 I mean, and it's again, it's the tool, right? And it will
Mhm.
help you do certain things, but it will not replace, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For what we do as human beings. And I was on a in a conversation earlier, and we were talking about AI, and I reminded the gentleman that AI is just that, right? It's artificial intelligence. It's not human intelligence.
Exactly.
You dig? And so, you bring that in to help you, and then you still have to, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
input your human element and sensibilities into it.
Yeah.
And the example of the doctor is so correct because even in our work, you go to the doctor and you tell the doctor that you have a headache, right? But if the doctor is really good at what he or she does, right, then he or she's gonna follow up with a number of questions to really make the
Exactly. An
correct
assessment.
diagnosis if you really
Mhm.
do it, just, if it's just a headache or if it's just something else, right? And this
Yeah.
is what we bring to our work, right? You and I, right? It's a deep dive. It's a lot
Yes.
of conversation to unearth something that you know they may not know that is there,
Yeah,
and it really
exactly.
helps them to really, what I mean, really either you know deal with the challenges and accomplish a particular goal.
Mhm.
So
And
you
no
have
matter
to you
what you
have to bring
do,
that to your
no matter
no
what you do,
no
yeah, no matter what you
no,
do.
yeah, it spans everything else. And I
Mhm.
so and I think it's people hear it and know it these days, right?
Mhm.
But to execute it, again, it's a whole different thing, right? They say that questions really are the answers, and the quality of the question that you're asking your
Mm.
client in terms of your deep dive is what's going to really unearth the quality of the answer, and then determine how you move forward in creating the content for this person or
Makes a
person.
lot of
So
sense. That
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's so true. Yeah. So when we talk about brand strategy, that's at the core of it. You know, whether it be developing your identity, your initial identity, and your identity, like we've said so many times on this podcast, is not just your logo; it's how you're perceived. Things like color mean something to people. It
right.
affects and influences people's response to you in so many different ways. The fonts you use, all of those things. For you, it could be the setting, the lighting, um, you know, what exactly is it that you want to tell, and combine all of those elements together, you come up with this brand story, you know? So,
Right.
yeah. And so, have you identified, have you seen like th- s- styles or different formats of video production that work well in the B2B space? Is it any one type? Do you I don't know, do you is it just based on the client, the type of work they do, and the story they want to tell, you know?
Well, good question. Certainly it does, but it's nuanced depending on the client. But I'll share this with you, what I've noticed over the years with respect to the types of stories,
Mhm.
right? And there are multiple of them, but I can tell you for sure three. And it spans organization or company, right? Or sectors. And we talked about one earlier, and that is the brand story, the why story, the origin story that we
Mhm.
call it, right? And this is where you're in the awareness stage, right?
Mhm.
Why did you come into being? And this is usually particularly told, excuse me, through the lens of the founder, the CEO, the executive person, right? Um, the other one that we notice as well, and we've done this for our clients, is a culture story, right?
Mhm.
And a culture story, you know, right now, people who are looking for work, right? Especially in this time, especially the younger workforce, they're very discerning, right? And who they work for, right?
Mhm.
And similarly, those who are looking for workers, right? They want to be able to attract the right people to their company or their organization. So their culture story really give everyone a really strong sense of what it is like to work for this
That's
company,
good.
for this organization. What's the culture look like? What is the environment and the whole vibe looks like when
Mhm.
everybody is there, right? And this one is tend to be told best through someone who works there, right?
Yeah.
And so it gives them a sense of why they made the decision to come to this organization. What was the attraction? Was it what they do, how they do it, the people that they want to work with and connect with, right?
Mhm.
And what does this do for this person in terms of the sense of fulfillment? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so we weave those kind of elements of their story into creating this origin story
Mhm.
for this company or organization. The last one, or the third one, I must say, that we've seen works a lot across all areas, whether you're creating awareness and or engagement, is the impact story,
Hmm.
right? And we mentioned it earlier with the product, right?
Yeah.
What is the impact
Yeah.
that this product is having? What is the impact that your service is having? What is the impact that this organization is having? Like, if you're a nonprofit organization, say, and you're looking to raise funds,
Yeah.
right? Which is always something that's ongoing. Then you would want to tell an impact story,
Yeah.
right? What's the story of the end person that you've served? How did you change their life? First of all, what was the challenge that was going on in their lives? And then when you come into contact with them and service with them, how did that change? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so when and in telling those stories, again, there's a process, there's a storytelling
No. Yeah.
process, right?
Mhm.
That gets you from this end to this end and
Mhm.
keeps you connected and keep you engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I saw
you
that
know.
firsthand in that first project, that nonprofit we worked with, just a small family run nonprofit. And you somehow took pieces of conversations with different people who were volunteering with them, people who have seen them, from day one, they themselves, this family, each person, and you created this story that was really beautiful. And I can appreciate that, for sure. And I can see how these three different types of storytelling versus really types of well, I guess you could call it types of video content,
Right,
it's the same,
right,
can actually help a business develop their brand and gain loyalty from, the people that they're interacting with, 'Cause if you're putting out
right.
these stories every day, yeah, in support of other things that you may be doing. You could be doing blog posts, you could be doing just sharing on social media, but the video will help support that, and your website and all of
Correct,
these things. Yeah, yeah,
correct.
yeah.
And then, like, this is what we tell people all the time. We're not creating this video content for you alone to be a solution, but it's also a part of the solution, right? And
Mm-hmm.
again, that depends, right? It could be the solution, but oftentimes it is a part of, the solution for you, because one of the things with especially these three that I just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
right? It lives on, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
you can constantly
yes,
reuse it. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And so again, to what we mentioned earlier, right? Just in terms of some of the changes in the space now, right? Well, a well told story as opposed to,
Just
a
a
TikTok thing,
mm,
right? It's not disposable. The story is
right.
so it lives on. It lives
Yes,
on.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I think
Like that.
people hear it and have and understand it, because storytelling, right,
Mm-hmm.
is bantered about a lot right now, right, because it's cool to talk
It's
about
cool to talk
story and
about story.
storytelling and so
Yes.
forth. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But again, who does it well and who doesn't,
Yes.
right, and how
Yeah.
does it really serve you.
Yeah. So, and I know, listen, not everybody has a budget to hire AyanDace, to produce these wonderful videos, tell these stories. They may not have the budget right now. So they have to rely on, what they have. And these
Absolutely.
devices, I mean, right now, my phone is my video camera for this,
Yep.
that's what I'm using. It's better than the camera on my laptop or even some standalone video cameras. It works well. So, you know what do you tell someone who doesn't have the budget to create that full production that you would produce? How can
Yeah.
they use what they have, to tell their story? Yeah.
And I do exactly what you just said, Karen. For me and for us, it's more important oftentimes, or I should say at times, it's more important to say we're not the right fit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because whether it's a budgetary situation or not.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have your camera, you know, I think you really should use that, and you
Mm-hmm.
can really get value out of it. And here, what I would do, I would give you X, Y, and Z pointers based upon what you're trying to do and how you can do that. Because um, even if you don't feel that you can really tell it as well as you think that we could, we're going to help you, right?
Right.
Still get you to a point where you're going to be able to tell the story that you're looking to tell
Yeah.
with what you have, right?
Right.
I'm not,
Right.
I'm not, I'm not looking for, what I mean, to get paid, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking to help,
Right.
right? The
Mm-hmm.
other things will come later. So
Mm-hmm.
you're absolutely right. I do that a lot. I think you should, instead of trying to find X amount of money to hire us to do this based upon what you're looking to do, I think you can do it yourself. And of course, you have phones which we can do that. And then but here's what I'll tell you, that you need to be able to be focusing on once you put your camera phone on,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure you're not just in terms of your look, but make sure how you're structuring your narrative,
I see.
right, so
Mm-hmm.
that it comes through. So absolutely, I encourage that. I
Yeah.
encourage that.
So,
You
okay,
know,
so you talk about structuring the narrative. What are other things that go into quality video that a small business person can apply to their process? Yes, you can just pick up the camera and record, but I'm thinking lighting. I don't. I don't know, what other things should they be concerned about when they
Yeah, yeah.
thinking?
From a consumer standpoint, that's so readily available,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, the camera has good quality, right? Lights are cheap, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have these little clip-on mics, make sure you're getting good audio. You want to have good audio, right? We
Mm-hmm.
talk about video, but if you don't have a good audio, the video really isn't
Yeah, yeah,
worth it.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because again, you're looking for clarity,
Yes.
right? Not just in story, but in sound as well. So you do that. You do that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
know,
And they're
I mean,
setting. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned setting as well, because, we walk them through a quick process if we're gonna, help them do the DIY thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, if I'm to even bring it over into how we do the process from the story, right? Um, you you really want to have a good sense of what the client is, right? Um, and again, it transfer. I'm saying it from me to a client, but if you can put yourself, you the person, as your own client, you can still extract, the
Yes.
similar
Yeah.
process from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be able to have that, again, that conversation to really get a sense of the DNA of the organization, right? And then, once you have that, now, what is the purpose, right? What is the call to action? What
Mm.
are you trying to inspire? Are you trying, what's the audience that you're going after? What's the
Mm.
feeling you want them to have? What's the action you want them to have at the end of that? So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of give you a groundwork, a framework for
Yes.
what you're going to do, right? Now, who is the best person through which the story will be told? And for us, we try as much as possible to have the client give us, a couple of people that we can do pre-interviews with,
Mm-hmm.
so we can discern who is the best person. And who's the best person is going to depend upon a number of things. How unique are they? What's the complexity of this person? What's their deepest desire,
Mm.
right? Because the deeper the desire, right, is the more you're going to be able to unearth, right,
So
a
you the
story.
business owner aren't always
Hmm.
necessarily the person to tell the story, It could
Correct.
be a customer, it could be an employee, yeah, somebody that interacts with the business, has
Right.
a positive
Right.
experience that can tell the story. I
Right,
like that.
right. Have a positive experience that can tell the story,
Yeah.
or or ideally, what initially what was their greatest challenge, right?
Mm.
And once they just make that decision that they're going to meet this challenge, right? Now they're going to go on a journey, and this is part of the whole storytelling process,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as
Unpacking
we
it.
we talking about unpacking it, right? And during that journey, there may be highs and lows, right?
Mm-hmm.
That come about, and so that is the essence of the story that's being told. And then what's the resolution? Is there
Okay.
one, good or bad?
Okay. Do you have an example of a project that you worked on that showed all of these elements, not from a DIY standpoint, but from real
Right.
work, and how it told that organization or individual story and what the result was? Do you have any examples?
I recently worked with an educational institution, a higher education institution, and they were looking to to connect with their alumni,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because their alumni has deep pockets,
Right.
right? So they're looking to get some of those, you
Yes.
know, some of those funds that they have. And having had conversation with them, we determined, okay, let's have one of those alumni story told. And we kind of look at, a number of them, and we,
Mm-hmm.
decide, okay, this person will be the best person's story to tell. And, in the process of production, it got very emotional for him,
Mm.
right? Because again, we were walking him through his own story and journey. We just
Right.
mentioned journey just now,
Right.
right? What were even some of the challenges that he had along the way,
Mm-hmm.
earlier on, right up to going through that particular journey. And we showed this at an alumni event, and everybody got emotional,
Mm.
right? Because for me, one of the things that I love the most, which is why I like to be behind the camera instead of in front of the camera, like we are right now, is to be able to extract, right?
Mm-hmm.
Extract that narrative, and sometimes having that conversation with the person, they're unearthing things that they haven't really even thought
Thought
of
about.
before. I've
Yes.
thought about in a long time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, that person getting so emotional, right, made the audience got emotional. And there's a lot of connection, right? Because a lot of them understand the journey of this person, of how he became successful the way he is, but the challenges he had and the
Mm-hmm.
losses that he's had, and how he's traversed through all of those things, and they all can able to identify with that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the end goal is that, again, they were able to, I don't know how much was
But
was
they were
raised,
raised.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But they were raising, right? And again, kind of coming back to, who's the person telling the story. And you mentioned heart, because some people say, it is the heart of the story or the character. And that initial decision is important, because it's the character that's going to bring the emotion and the connection
Mm-hmm.
to who you're trying to reach.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
and when it works well like that, it's a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing. It's a
Yes.
beautiful thing. And
Yeah.
so that's what we're trying to bring to the client, irrespective of the levels that they're
Yes.
on in their journey.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Doesn't it feel good when you go through the process, because when you start, the client has no idea how this is going to turn out. They're
Correct.
trusting you, and then you take that trust, you care for it, and then you go through your process, and then you deliver the end result, and the end result is not just the video. It's what happened at that event. It's the emotions that it
Right.
evoked.
Right.
And it's not even
Right.
so much about the goal of fundraising. It's the emotions that it evoked, and how
It's
it got people to take action. That's the
right.
thing, the
Right.
powerful thing, that
There you go.
yeah, there's
There you
power
go.
in this. And so, I'm taking from this, Andrew, that yeah, you can DIY, use what you have, use what you resources you have, but be mindful of the story that you're telling. And also, don't forget to ask. If you have a website. I talk to people in my consulting work right now about their website. When I first go to their website, and there's no call to action, you're not you can't. You're in business, you can't not ask. Schedule an appointment, buy this product, do this one thing here, donate, become a sponsor, whatever it is that you want to do. You can't hide it behind these fluffy words and videos and actions, and you talking about. You got to tell people what you want them to do,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
like
That's
that.
that's important, because
Mm-hmm.
we we have to give at the very basic, um some level of intelligence, right,
Mm-hmm.
to your potential client, right? Because they're going to say, look at you, excuse me, your website and what have you, and say, okay, so what do you want me to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? What are you asking?
Yeah. Or if you make it
You
difficult for
know,
them to find it.
it'll be difficult to
Yeah.
find it.
Yeah. They're gonna
You know,
leave. They're not
yeah,
gonna make a purchase.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you use the word too, Karen. That I think is very important in all of this, is care,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm always mindful of the fact, and it sounds cliche, it sounds boring, and it sounds repetitious to say that, you know, we are doing business with people,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's people doing business with people,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know when we talk about this companies, organizations, brand, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is, right? And and ultimately, you're they've entrusted everything into your care,
Yeah.
and in return you're caring enough for them to want to give them the best that they need,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because again, ultimately, right, service to others is fundamentally human,
Yes. Yeah. That's
you
how we
know,
connect. We
and you
started
can't
talking
hide
about
it.
that.
Exactly,
You talked
exactly,
about
exactly,
storytelling being that
exactly.
connection
You
point
know,
between
and you don't want to
people.
hide it
Yeah.
behind, you know, the
A lot of
business of it all
big
and so forth,
words.
and big words and all of that
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
because it's still there,
Yeah.
and you still have to come back to it,
Yeah.
you know.
And lots of
So
words,
absolutely.
using a tremendous amount of words and talking and talking. In video, you could be just rambling on and jumping from one topic to the next.
Yep.
In copywriting, you could be just putting a book on your website. People's attention spans is another thing that you have to remember. You can tell a long story, but you have to be able to hold their attention. And I'm hoping that we're
Correct.
doing that with this.
For sure, for sure, for sure, and that's important that you just said,
Yeah.
Karen, and I must point that out, because even
Yeah.
from creating video content, right? Oftentimes we see people, and especially those, and it could be even well, oftentimes you see people who wants to use a video and tell everything as much as
Mm-hmm.
they can, and you just get lost,
Yeah.
right? Because we in the business world, we know that, you get more traction when you're niching, right?
Yeah.
When you niche down. Similarly, when you're telling a story, you just want to focus on one particular, thing that you want to convey, instead of trying to, think that, I'm just going to use this one opportunity to do,
Yeah.
to say as much as we want, and to talk about this, talk about.
You're
After a
right.
while, to your point, you just lose folks.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, scatterbrain.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I got so much out of this, and I know that, the audience got a lot of out of this, and I want to kind of summarize. So storytelling is important in anything that you do, and being able to do it visually through video is an amazing opportunity that we have, especially now, with access to tools like your phones or whatever. But using companies like AyanDace to help you, talk about your company's culture, the why behind, what you do, and talk about how you do what you do. Those three things are the types of stories that, Andrew is saying are very
Right, right,
important.
right. And
In
the
Yes,
impact
and the
that, it
impact,
has, for sure,
yes, the
for
impact
sure.
in telling that story and developing your brand awareness and loyalty, for people to want, like, listen. I still have a video, a commercial, TV commercial in my mind right now that ran during the holidays. Public supermarkets, they tell the best stories about their products, and, about their company. You don't even know that you're talking about a supermarket,
Right. And
but
you know
you're,
what, too, Karen,
yeah.
if I
Hmm.
may interject
Yeah.
with that, that's a good point. And when you think about Publix, right, and their stories emanate from the kind of company and organization that they
Culture.
are, right?
Yes.
The culture, right? Because remember also that they're employee owned. So the
Yes.
employees are the center of who they are, right?
Yeah.
And so that it comes through
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
way as well.
Yeah, and then it translates in the supermarkets. When you go into the supermarkets, they're known for service.
Yep.
They're known for service. I know so many people who say I shop there, um, because the service level. The people bagging my groceries, taking it to the car. You can go somewhere else, and yes, you're gonna pay less, but I go there because of the experience. It's not just that. People go to Disney World because of the experience. And so when you
Right.
tell these stories, yeah, we bring that across,
Right.
in these
Right.
videos. And so what we're saying is, you know, tell your stories using video, but do it the right way. Think
Tell it
about the
well.
audience, think about who you're talking to, talk about your why, your culture, and the impact of your product or service on everybody else. So in story brand, we say it's figuring out what the problem is for your customer, what it is that you do to solve their problem, and how they feel when they're done. So evoking that emotion and directing them to take action, pick
Take
up the phone or
action.
call, do whatever. You're in business, and so that is what you want to do. So there's so I had a few more questions, but we answered all of that in all this. My questions were, laid out, but I think we answered them. So, Andrew, on this podcast, Guiding Brands, I'm the chief guide, and everybody that sits, in front of me that talks with me, I consider them guides as well. So, how you, as the expert videographer, would say that you are a guide or can be a guide to the Guiding Brands audience? What do you see happening that you can actually guide them with right now?
And you're talking about those
Yeah,
who are
anybody,
what?
anybody listening right now, as a guide, is there? And let me rephrase that. Let's say, what one thing would you want to impart to the audience right now? As the videographer guide, then, so to speak.
Okay, I get that. Um, know who you're serving,
Hmm.
right? Know who your audience is. You have a really clear understanding of who your audience is. Um, what are the everybody say, what are their pain points, what are their challenges, what are they looking, to get out of their interaction with you, right? Always make sure that they're top of mind. You are there to be of service, right?
Okay.
You're there to help them, accomplish what it is that they're looking to accomplish. And of course, in the process, you'll get the returns as well. But I think it most importantly you have to do that, and I kind of stick to that only because um, fundamentally for me, it's all about people, right? I think we're kind of getting lost with that in the space that we're in right now in these times,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're getting away from you used the word earlier, kind of caring. So if you're doing that for those you're serving,
Mm-hmm.
right, then you'll see the benefits that come that you're actually looking for, right?
Yeah.
If you focus on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you. Thank you for that. And that's important, and it's at the heart. When I started this podcast a year ago, wow, this month is actually a year ago. Um, that was the foundation that I started the podcast with, helping people understand that it's about the audience. It's about who it is that you're serving, and more so than it is about you. Yes, you have a business and you want to grow it, but you're serving people and you need to be able to interact with them. And so, just like
Yeah. Yeah.
having a simple conversation and whatever it is that you
Absolutely.
do. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And your business will grow, right?
Yes.
Because it has been the tried and true proven method in how you become successful in your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking for longevity. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You're not looking to be a flash in the
Yeah.
pan.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah. So okay.
absolutely.
So Andrew, this was great. You did fantastic. You were
Thank
worried
thank you for
about
pulling me out. Thank you for pulling me out like that. You know what I mean?
yeah, you were worried about, being in front of the camera, and I think you did great. And I'm going to ask everybody in the audience to tell us, how did Andrew do? Tell us on social media,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Be
you
be
know.
be 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 honest about it. Be honest about it.
And
You
if
know?
there are any
Yeah.
questions that, you may have out there in the audience for Andrew regarding, videography and telling your story through video, where can they find you, Andrew? Can you share that with us?
Sure. Our website
Mm-hmm.
is ayandacestudios.com. It's AYANDACE studios.com. And for me, I'm primarily on LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn person, so you can find me there. You can find Ayanda Studios on LinkedIn.
Okay,
You
wonderful.
know,
And I'll
yeah. And
share.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
certainly open to any questions and anybody might have. I'm more than willing to share.
Okay,
Just
awesome.
reach out.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Thank you for sharing that. And All that information will be in the show notes. And, just want to say thank you again. And that's it for today's episode of the Guiding Brands podcast. That's all for this episode of the Guiding Brands podcast. I look forward to sharing with you again next week. So please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Thank you and bye for now.